Hey guys, Dark Angel here. So it's 4th of July today, and yeah, I hope you guys are having a safe 4th of July. You know, drink responsibly. If you're doing any traveling, do not travel and drink. And if you're out in the hot sun and you're drinking, be sure to consume water. For every can of beer you drink a glass of water. I would highly suggest it. Stay hydrated. Drinking dehydrates you in the heat. But anyway, so listen, I'm going to touch and go on a little topic. Yesterday, I found a video by a officer whose YouTube page is called Thoughts of a Patrolman. And he loves to talk about how he calls people clowns and jerks and all this stuff, you know. Well, he's a tyrant, in the event that you guys don't know. So go to his page, you know, and pay him some tribute as a tyrant, because that's what he is. He is going to highly try to convince you that you do need a driver's license and that you cannot travel without one. He even got into it to where he wanted to actually try to dispute Thompson versus Smith case. So he actually cited parts of this case, talking about how we did it and the state had the right to regulate, etc., etc. That is mentioned in the case. However, he left one most important part of the case out that I am going to actually cover to show that, you know, when people sit there and tell you that they have this or they have that, make them prove it. Okay? Their opinions mean nil. Their opinions mean nothing. If they don't provide you with some kind of actual factual proof, their opinions mean nil. And for those of you that fall for other people's opinions, shame on you. You know, don't be lazy and just take someone's word for what they tell you. You know, get off your lazy butt, get out there and do some work. Do the homework. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take you to do homework in order to get what you want, okay? So if you're relying on other people to do it, you probably might be waiting for a while. But anyway, I'm going to get into this because I want this officer, I'm going to call him moron, because he's a moron. He's a tyrant, and I've already put an invitation out there to him and told him that I would love to meet him. So you guys need to go see that Tyrants Better Ask Somebody video on my channel. Need to ask somebody. Go look at that video. You're gonna like it. It's kind of funny, actually. And I actually have another one. The police need to ask somebody. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm getting ready to disclose to you on, let's see, 5/15/2023 at 5:51 a.m. the Supreme Court released its definitions and terms. Okay, so this is 2023, you guys. This isn't, you know, for all you haters, traitors, and constitutional haters, traitors, and trolls. This isn't, as you guys are always saying, well, you're using old text, you're using old this, and you're using that. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm using what the Supreme Court handed down on 2023. Okay, at 5:15 a.m. in the morning. Now, I don't know if you can see that or not. Private affairs, see that? Private affairs, can you see that date? There you go. Private affairs. This is in relation to a memorandum that was sent to the Supreme Court, driving in commerce. Now, This is all about commerce now, because the memorandum actually was questioning driving. Okay, so they've come to the conclusion, drawn the conclusion, and rendered the opinion, which we already knew this, that driving was in fact in commerce. So hence the Thompson versus Smith case, driving in commerce, which that officer doesn't seem to understand or know the difference between driving and traveling. He has no idea. He's clueless. So, you know, that just goes to show you the ignorance level of some of the police officers. They call themselves trying to be policy enforcers, but they don't even know what the law is that, or the policies are that they're enforcing. They have no idea. They're clueless. So, you know, I'm going to get right off into this, because this is what I'm reading to you is also part of the memorandum that was submitted, and then the second part I'm going to read will be part of the Thompson versus Smith case that the officer failed to mention in his video, and then I'm going to go back to finish reading what part of the memorandum said, and then I'm going to go through and read to you the definitions that the Supreme Court handed down in reference to that memorandum. Now, I will say this to you. I am not going to disclose the name of the individual that's on this memorandum. You have to do your own homework, okay? I'm giving you the evidence you need. I'm giving you the proof that you need. I got it from somewhere, and it's not made up bullshit, okay? I have no reason to lie to you. I have no reason to mislead you, okay? I do this fight every day of my life. So therefore, if I'm doing this fight, I sure as hell not going to mislead someone in their attempt to want to carry on with this fight, okay? So that's not going to happen. You can take Dark Angel's word that he's 100. As you see through my videos, if you watch any of my videos, you'll notice I keep it 100. I tell you from both sides of the coin, not just one side. I tell it to you like it is from both sides of the coin. You're breaking the law, you deserve to get what you get. You know, if you're upholding the law and you're doing good, and you're taking into consideration other people's safety, health, and welfare while you're traveling, hey, more power to you. That's the positive vibes we want to bring to this to get these courts to be more persuaded into just, you know, let the law be the law. You know, it's the law, but, you know, instead of having to go into these courts with resistance from the rogue tyrants that sit up there, they just go ahead and cave, because they see that, well, was there any fatalities in this incident? No. Was anybody injured in this incident? No. Okay, case dismissed. Back to the norm. You see what I'm saying? And I know a lot of you probably don't understand it, and you probably don't get it, but you will get it in time. You'll get it in time, trust me. And then you'll be like, oh, now I see what he's talking about. But anyway, so for those of you that don't know, driving is commerce, and what commerce means to do business or trade, okay? So look the word commerce up. Then, as I told you in previous videos, look up the DOC when it was formed, and look up the DMV when it was formed. And then you should be able to determine that all the cases that have been decided by the Supreme Court back in the day, all the cases that all the trolls, haters, and traitors are always saying, well, they're outdated. No, there's no such thing as outdated cases. Only way cases get outdated is if they're superseded or overturned. That's the only two ways cases are outdated, for you morons and you idiots that don't know that. So I'm going to actually give you a case that goes all the way back, or I'm actually going to give you a law It goes so far back, and it's still active law to this day. And it's so funny because it actually is active law to this day. So, a private man or a woman has the inherent and inviolable right to travel. The common law acknowledges that a private man or woman has the inborn right to travel the nation's roads without the requirement for a driver's license and/or registered vehicle. The right to travel is part of the liberty of which a citizen cannot be deprived without due process of law under the Fifth Amendment. This right was emerging as early as the Magna Carta, and you can find that in Kent versus Dulles 357 U.S. 116, 1958. This is a 1958 case citing the Magna Carta. For those of you that don't know what the Magna Carta is, the Magna Carta was a group of barons from the British colonies that penned the very first Bill of Rights. It was penned on June the 15th, 1215, back in the 13th century. That is correct. The very first Bill of Rights to ever be written. And what that bill was written for was for the king at the time, asserting the king with only certain powers so that the king would not trample on the people's rights. So there you go. There's history for you. That's just how far back we go. Now, as you know, we are still under the British regime, so that's a foreign regime. Okay, that's just to give you guys a little insight as to how far back the right to travel goes. Basically, what that was for the merchants that traveled, and other rights too. But one of the main issues in that Bill of Rights was because back in those days, monarchs, kings, barons, and all that stuff, a lot of merchants did a lot of traveling into the kingdoms. And when they traveled into the kingdoms, they had wares that they were trying to trade, sell, etc., etc. So, with that being said, the king would stop a lot of these merchants and not allow them to push their wares, their trades. Well, they drew up the Bill of Rights. A group of barons got together and drew up a Bill of Rights to prevent that from happening. Now you say, well, they didn't have the word commerce back then. They didn't need to. The word merchant was commerce enough, because merchant means a trader, a seller, a businessman. So there you go. Business related again, people. You can't get around it. So, it's time to get out of denial and come to reality. It's time to get out of denial and come to reality, people. The right to travel is a well-established common right that does not owe its existence to the federal government. It is recognized by the courts as a natural right, and that is Sackman versus Dulles, 96, Appellant DC 287. The use of the highway for the purpose of travel and transporting is not a mere privilege, but a common fundamental right of which the public and individuals cannot rightfully be deprived. Chicago Motor Coach versus Chicago, 169 Northeast 221. The right of the citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon, either by carriage or by automobile, is not a mere privilege which a city may prohibit or permit at will, but a common law right which he has under the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thompson versus Smith, 154 Southeast 579. Now, as you just heard me read that part, Thompson versus Smith is the case that thoughts of a patrolman called himself trying to rip apart, and he read the good part that we use out of the case, and then he tried to counter that part by saying that the state had the right to regulate the travel. And I corrected him and told him, correction, the state was never given the power or the authority to regulate travel. They were given the authority to regulate commerce as well as driving. So, you know, he wanted to argue and deal, and then I told him, I said, well, the funny thing is you keep mentioning about the right to drive a private automobile as mentioned in Thompson's case. Drive is commerce. It's commercial. It means for hire. Yes, you can have a private automobile and use it in commerce because it is a such thing as called a taxi cab, a Uber, a Lyft, etc., etc. Your private automobile, you're using it for gain. So when they use the expression drive within the case of Thompson, it also became commerce because the Department of Commerce was already enacted at that time. I do believe this case is a 1930 case, and I do believe that the DOC, which is what it was called then, and is still called that to this day, as a matter of fact, my apologies, is the Department of Commerce. There was no DMV in 1930 or 40s or 50s or 60s. So there's that. So the Department of Commerce, meaning business or trade, is what the case fell under. Every case that was surrendered by the Supreme Court back in the day, at the time of the admission of the DOC, and even before then, well, actually, I'm going to say this. Before the DOC was formed, it was free-for-all. Okay? Now, if someone feels that that's incorrect, by all means, leave a comment, you know, and correct me in that. But I'm going to say that before the DOC was formed, Department of Commerce, it was actually a free, which, well, actually, it is correct because of the simple fact there is a few cases outside of Hendricks versus Maryland, which I know you trolls, haters, and traders are going to try to bring up. I've already dissolved that case. We already found out that that case is rodent in commerce. So there is a few cases that came immediately thereafter that actually constitutes the right to drive. Okay, so there's that. And if you need any of those cases, please hit me up. Like I said, hit me up in the comments, let me know, and I will be glad to send you in the right direction of where those cases can be found and as such. So, thoughts of a patrolman, he thought that he was going to rip our argument apart by insinuating that the state had the right to regulate the roads. Yeah, they do. In commerce. You are right there, Mr. Patrolman. The only authority the state has ever been given, or its police power, was to regulate its commerce. It's commerce. Commerce. That's the only authority the state has ever been given. It's never been given the authority to regulate private travel. Never. There's not a case law, a statute, a policy ever written that says that. And it would be in your best of interest, Mr. Thoughts of a Patrolman, to look that up, because that's why when we go into the courts and we do get these cases, which me personally, I have never been, I went once and I won. Hands down, it was not even no questions asked, actually. But the bottom line is that's why you think we're winning, and you people are losing your pensions, your qualified immunities, because you're too dumb. How can you be in a business to enforce something you know nothing about? And then you want your egos and your tyranny to get in the way of your actual oath And then when you're hit with the lawsuit, all of a sudden you want to cry like little babies. Well, Thoughts of a Patrolman, here's for you. This one's actually for you because you mysteriously forgot this part of the case on Thompson versus Smith. The doctrine that when the state or city has the power to prohibit the doing of an act altogether, it has the power to permit the doing of the act under any condition or subject to any regulation, however arbitrary. The state has no application, are you listening, Thoughts of a Patrolman, to a permit issued for the purpose of regulating the exercise of the common right to operate a private automobile on the streets of a city. And for you that don't know that, basically what that was saying was the state has no authority. They have no jurisdiction over that. The state has no jurisdiction over the fact that they can't regulate private individuals' travel. But as I mentioned before, Reno versus Condon actually clarifies that. Reno versus Condon was a 2000 case that was rendered by Supreme Court Justice Rehnquist, who specifically made it very clear that no state has the authority to push regulations, federal regulations, on that of private individuals. It's written in the rule of law in the case. So you're a brand new officer. You say you're 10 years in the force, but you're 10 years stupid because you don't even understand how to, you don't even know how to read. You can't even comprehend what you're looking at. You take it as what you think it says, and then you try to criticize what it actually means. But you know, your criticism comes to me as a breath of fresh air because I'm actually hearing it from the downside of a tyrant cop, you know, as to your mindset and how you actually think. And I find it amusing. You're entertaining. You're a very entertaining guy. Stupid as fuck, but you're entertaining. And yes, I would tell you all this to your face because there's nothing you can do to me. You're not going to do nothing to me. You're just a puppet in the bigger picture. See, and with you being the puppet and your master pulling your strings, that's all you know. That's all you've ever known. See, I don't have a master pulling my strings. I pull my own strings. I back what comes out of my mouth. So there's that. But you know, because this isn't about me getting into a grudge match with you about anything, because one thing for sure, two things for certain, I will say this: knowledge is power, and I have way more knowledge than you will ever have. So all of your big beefy looks and all that stuff means little nothing. Just a big dumb lummox. No state government entity, listen to this, Mr. Thoughts of a Patrolman. No state government entity has the power to allow or deny passage on the highways, byways, or waterways. Travel is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurances. Chicago Coach Company versus the City of Chicago, 337 Illinois 200. Well. How dumb are you? I bet you're feeling really dumb right about now, aren't you? You really are dumb anyway, but that's besides the point. Complete freedom of the highways is so old and well established a blessing that we have forgotten the days of the robber barons. And if you don't know what those are, look them up. And toll roads, and yet under an act like this arbitrarily administered, the highways may be completely monopolized. If through lack of interest the people submit, then they may look to see the most sacred of their liberties taken from them one by one, by more or less rapid encroachment. The prophetic words of Justice Thompson of the Supreme Court of Washington State, Robertson versus Department of Public Works, 180 Washington, 133, 147. And as you heard what he said, if we submit, then we deserve to have our rights taken from us. That's why I was telling you in the video To register a motor vehicle, automobile, that's voluntary. That's not mandatory. You can't make it mandatory. There's no such thing. Why do you think all the cases lose in court? All your tickets and all that stuff gets dropped in court, dismissed in court. Some people lose because of the way they go about trying to execute their case, and you know, there's procedures and formats that you should use, you know, but you have to be very careful on how you utilize those procedures, you know, and those formats. So, you know, there is no law or statute that requires, listen to this, sir, there's no law or statute that requires a private motor-powered conveyance to be registered, nor any law or statute that requires a private man or woman to possess a driver's license or insurance. Sure isn't. And if you ever notice in your state statutes, there's nothing in there about private automobiles. You know why? 14th Amendment. That's why. No state has jurisdiction over that of private affairs of private individuals, including travel. Any private affairs over any type of private individual includes any and everything that pertains to their livelihood, life and liberty. Just in case you didn't know that. Now you know it. However, if you register a motor power, listen now. However, if you register a motor-powered conveyance, it becomes a vehicle subject to all commercial traffic codes, rules, and regulations, and penalties. You become a commercial transport operator involved in the transportation of goods or passengers for hire, compensation, or profit. This is because a de jure public state has the delegated power of the private people to create, by legislation, fictional entities for the purpose of commerce, and therefore the state has a right and duty to regulate its corporate franchise when they are or regulate its corporate franchises when they are used on the public highways for commercial gain. In short, the state controls its creations. See, you can control what you created, but you can't. You're not allowed to touch what you haven't created. It's not yours. I'm not yours. I don't belong to any of y'all. Let's see. Let's make sure we get it right. Okay, legislation entry by contract into commerce occurs primarily through registration, licensing, certification, securitization, and general deposit. When the public highways are made the place of business, the state has a right to regulate their use in the interest of safety and convenience of the public, as well as the preservation of the highways. Thompson versus Smith, supra. Same case. The part of the cases you forgot to mention again. See, nowhere in there does it say they have the right to regulate private travel. It actually states in the case, business, which I already knew that. You didn't, but I did. And when you was trying to make your argument, you know, it was funny that you was trying to make that argument, not knowing that these cases, his Thompson case, has been used in the courts for a long time. And if it wasn't law, we wouldn't be able to use it. And apparently it's law because the courts accept it. And they know that when they read it, that they're reading the law. So, you know, I don't know how you drew the conclusion that you drew out of it, Thoughts of a Patrolman. How you drew and came to the conclusion that you did when it specifically states right here, when the public highways are made the place of business, the state has a right to regulate their use in the interest of safety and convenience of the public, as well as the preservation of the highways. Thompson versus Smith, supra. I'm not understanding where you got your conclusion from, because the case was clearly about business. Even though you think that it was about something else, anyone who applied for a permit back in the day to drive and operate a vehicle on the roads was for business. It's always been a business. It still is a business to this day. Supreme Court has made it very clear in 2000 that the DMV and its licensing is business. All licenses are for hire. You cannot force me to go into a business with you. Can't do it. Law says so. For while a citizen has a right to travel upon the public highways to transport his property thereon, that right does not extend to the use of the highways either in whole or in part as a place for private gain. For the latter purpose, no person has a vested right to use the highways of the state, but is a privilege or a license which the legislation may grant or withhold at its discretion. Packard versus Banton, 44. Supreme Court, 256. Oh my goodness. There it is in writing. It's right there in writing. It's been right there the whole time. And a lot of you did not know that. And you, Mr. Thought of a Patrolman, there it is for you in writing. I don't need a license to travel on the road. Not at all. Supreme Court says so right there in that case right there. Law. And in the event that you don't know, the Supreme Court is the law of the land. So, with that being said, moving on because I don't have time for ignorance. We know of no inherent right in one to use the highways for commercial purposes. Oops, here we go. The highways are primarily for the use of the public, and in the interest of the public, the state may prohibit or regulate the use of the highways for gain. Robinson versus Department of Public Works, supra. What? Whoa. So if I have a right to be out there on that highway, as long as I'm not doing business, you have no business fucking with me. Period. And as long as I'm not doing anything illegal, you have no business fucking with me. Power cases here, sir. Why do you think you guys lose in court all the time? While the public state has the delegated power of the private people, let me say that again, private people to create corporations and other legal fiction entities for the purpose of commerce, and a right and duty to preserve the safe conduct of the people upon the highways, the state does not have the power to convert the lawful right to travel freely upon the highways into a paid legal privilege through the imposition of legal fiction adhesion contracts. Generally, an adhesion contract is defined as a standardized, this is a Supreme Court definition, guys, just in case you're wondering. What I said was this is all from the Supreme Court in the event that you was curious. Let me see. I forgot the last word I said on the other page. My bad. Okay, contract from offered to consumers of goods and services on essentially a take it or leave it basis, without affording the consumer a realistic opportunity to bargain, and under such conditions that the consumer cannot obtain the desired product or services except for acquiescing in the form of a contract. Pendergast versus Sprint Nextel Corp, 2010. What? United States Supreme Court. What? Lexus 79. What? No way. Wow. An adhesion contract is a license. Oh my God. Oh my God. Only by consenting to an adhesion contract does it become enforceable. For example, a traffic ticket. Similarly, vehicles, registration, and driver's license contracts are subject to one's consent to enter into commerce, which is an artificially created system. Huh. Wow. Check that shit out. We knew that already, though. Of course, you cops don't know that. So, the origins of legal commerce are found in merchant shipping, for which merchants created their own paper-based system of administration, in which all ships were registered vessels in commerce, and disputes between registered vessels were resolved in administrative courts with a dock for the accused vessel. As maritime commerce expanded, monarchs, especially British, compelled by their debts to bankers and a desire for colonial conquest, added their naval forces to the pursuit of empire building. Consequently, the merchant's maritime jurisdiction, law merchant, became the Admiralty maritime jurisdiction, the international law of the sea. Again, hitting you up with a little bit of history of where all this comes from. Today, all commerce occurs within the foreign Admiralty maritime jurisdiction, and all registered forms of transport used in commerce, such as ships, aircraft, and vehicles, functions as vessels in commerce. I keep saying commerce. My bad. As do all registered legal fiction entities, including corporations and artificial persons. The theater of commerce is a legal fiction aberration of the mind in which the participants act in legally prescribed roles, including a driver. Most people unwittingly contract into a commercial performance as a driver, a resident, a U.S. citizen, slave, and so on, because of non-disclosure, deceit, or coercion by state officials, which can only be construed as fraud and the unjust enrichment of governmental agencies, ultimately serving the debt money system of bondage. The people never give up their liberties but under some delusion. Edmund Burke, 1784. The people, by legally contracting through registration and licensing, become subject to the policing powers of the incorporated government operating in commerce, but in common law jurisdiction, the national and supreme law of the land. Such contracts are only valid when they are entered into knowingly, intentionally, and voluntarily. Knowingly, intentionally, and voluntarily. Are contracts void? Are they valid? Sorry, not void. That's the only time such contracts under common law are valid. You can't force a contract on me, and you sure as hell can't get me to get into a contract with you without telling me the full disclosure of that contract. Never in life. Why do you think I sit down? Me personally, I do. I read everything before I sign anything. I read. Moreover, the common law right to travel freely and unpaid on the public highways without a vehicle registration or driver's license contract in the ordinary course of life and business is an unalienable right that cannot be revoked by the state, nor can the state convert that right into a privilege granted for a fee. The state cannot diminish the rights of the people. Hurtado versus California, 110 U.S. 516. No state may convert a secured liberty into a privilege and issue a license and fee for it. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, 319 U.S. 105. If the state does convert a right into a privilege and issue a license and charge a fee for it, You can ignore the licensing fee and engage in the right with impunity. Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, Alabama, 373 U.S. Unless a private traveler causes harm to people or damage to property, a crime on the public highways, or is evidently such a danger, there is no reasonable cause for interference by any governmental agency in their what? Wait a minute. In their private affairs. My bad. Oh, yeah, that's part of the private affairs. I'm sorry. In their private affairs. Consider the legal definitions that the Supreme Court has handed down as to clarify your argument, as handed down on 5/15/2023 at 5:51 a.m. Here we go, people. The part y'all been waiting for 41 minutes into this video, and we finally get to the good part. Get down to the good part. So we're getting down to the good part. Now we're going to get to it. Now, all y'all haters, traders, and all that can say, well, that's old stuff. Nope. This is her 2023, people, what the Supreme Court has handed down. And this is what they're telling you. That means that these are the definitions that they are going to look to in the arguments of any of these cases. Any of these right to travel cases that's going to come into their court. These are the definitions that are going to be used. So give me 1 second. Let me make an adjustment here. Putting this little fella up here because it is getting hot outside. And I can feel that heat. So, I'm going to make a quick adjustment real quick. There we go. And put this little fella right up here by me where I can feel it. There we go. A lot better. Anyway, so now we're getting ready to get into the good part, and again, I apologize for that. I should have had that adjusted a while back, but okay, so per the Supreme Court, 5/15/2023 at 5:51 a.m., they defined the following definitions. Automobile. They've actually given you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different. Let me make sure I got that right. They actually give you 5 different. Well, hell. Yeah. They actually give you 5 different definitions for automobile. The term motor vehicle is different and broader than the word automobile. City of Dayton versus DeBrosi, 62, Ohio, Appellate Court. Automobile, the word automobile connotes a pleasure vehicle designed for the transportation of persons on the highway. American Mutual Liberty Insurance Company versus Chapa. Automobile. Automobile is an ordinary vehicle of pleasure and business. It is no more dangerous per se than a team of horses and a carriage and or a gun, or a sailboat or a motor launch. Daly versus Maxwell. Farnsworth versus Rampa. Fielder versus Davison. Automobile. A motor vehicle or automobile for hire is a motor vehicle. Automobile. A motor vehicle or automobile for hire is a motor vehicle other than an automobile stage, used for the transportation of persons, which remuneration is received. If you don't know what that means fee, money. International Motor Transit Company versus Seattle. Automobile, the definition of goods includes an automobile. Whoopsie. Henson versus Government Employees Financing and Industrial Loan Court, 15 UCC Rep. Note. Oh, they even put little notes on here. to let you know that when an automobile is used for commercial gain, it becomes a motor vehicle because the purpose of its use determines its legal definition. Also note that the legal definition of goods includes an automobile. Imagine that. Straight from the Supreme Court, guys. Straight from the Supreme Court. And I don't know why these papers are giving me such a hard time today, but they are. Commerce. Hey. Commerce, they give you 3. Yeah. Commerce gives you 3 definitions. From El Comercium, trade trafficking, from com, together, mercs, M-E-R-X, gen, mercies, which means merchandise and or market, from commerce pertaining to trade, meaning done for the sake of financial profit, commodity from commodity, benefit, profit from el commoditarium. Wow. Now we're getting into the good shit. Commerce, intercourse by way of trade and traffic between different peoples and or states and citizens or inhabitants thereof, including not only the purchase, sale, and exchange of commodities, but also the instrumentalities and agencies by which it is promoted and the means and appliances by which it is carried on, and the transportation of persons as well as of goods both by land and by sea. Brennan versus Tintonsville, 153 U.S., 289, 14 Supreme Court. Whoopsie. There you go. Definition straight from the Supreme Court, guys. They're telling you what it is. The words commerce and trade are synonymous, but not identical. There you go. They are often used interchangeably, but strictly speaking, commerce relates to intercourse or dealings with foreign nations, states, or political communities. While trade denotes business intercourse or mutual traffic within the limits of a state or nation, or the buying, selling, and exchanging of articles between members of the same community, Hooker versus Van Water. Well. Note that commerce relates to dealings with foreign nations while trade is within a state or nation. Hence, all commerce occurs in a foreign jurisdiction, the Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction, the international law of the sea. Used for commercial purposes, the term used for commercial purposes means the carriage of persons or property for any fare, fee, rate, charge, or other consideration, or directly or indirectly in connection with any business or other we'll rip it apart. Apparently it's too high. Undertaking intended for profit. U.S. Code Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 2, Section 31, Definitions 10. So guys, as you can see so far, the definitions are actually repeating definitions that a lot of you guys claim are so old, but the actual Supreme Court is still utilizing those exact same definitions that you say are old. How is that? So obviously they're not old if the Supreme Court is still using the same ones that you claim is old and outdated. How's that work? You tell me. Because this is straight off the Supreme Court, and they're saying that these are the terms that they use. The definitions. These are the definitions that they use. So if they use these definitions, how do you have the audacity to say that they're no good? They're the law of the land. They're the one that makes the rules. They're the one that makes the laws. They're the one that matters. Your opinion don't matter. It doesn't matter what you think. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but the bottom line is when the law of the land has been laid, that's what you got to go by. And this is what you got to go by. So you can deny it all you want, and that's okay, that's fine, you know, but deprogram yourself, because that's what this is all about. It's deprogramming you, getting you to understand and realize that what you've been told has been a lie. You know, I'm going to get in, let's see, common law, that which derives its force and authority from the universal consent and immemorial practices of the people. Common law, as distinguished from law created by the enactment of legislatures, the common law comprises the body of those principles and rules of action relating to the government and security of persons, people, and property which derive their authority solely from uses and customs. As a compound objective, common law is understood as contrasted with or opposed to statutory law. Conveyance. Contracts. The transfer of the title to land by one or more persons to another or others. By the term persons is here understood not only natural persons but corporations. Conveyance, the act of taking or carrying someone or something from one place to another. Something that carries people or things from one place to another. Wow. So here we go. Driver. I'm only going to do one or two of the drives because they have a long list of drives. But the bottom line is they all derive to the same conclusion. Driver, one employed in conducting or operating a coach, carriage, wagon, or other vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and read two of them. A person employed in the engagement activity of operating or conducting a motor vehicle or passenger vehicle transporting persons or property for hire or compensation on the public highways. I want to say that one again because I want you to understand it again. A person employed in the engagement or activity of operating or conducting a motor vehicle or passenger vehicle transporting persons or property for hire or compensation on the public highways. And that definition, they actually concluded that definition back in 1968. And that definition they're still using today. Imagine that. Note. They put a note in here. Hang on. That the definition of driver. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering, I'm reading these actually for the first time myself here doing this video. So we're actually getting this same information at the exact same time, pretty much. Okay. A lot of this I already knew. But I just got this just recently. So this here, I actually haven't had time to actually get into it because I actually wanted to see natural response out of myself as well as responses from y'all. So the note says that the definition of driver includes one who is employed in conducting a vehicle. The definition of employed signifies both doing a thing and being under contract while doing it. A driver who is employed under contract is in the service of another, is liable to perform certain duties, and is also entitled to just compensation. For example, taxi cab driver, truck driver, bus driver, Uber, Lyft, limousine driver. What? Well. Driving is a privilege, not a right. California Driver Handbook 2002. Driving. What did it just say about driver? Driver's license. A driver's license means any type of license or privilege to operate a motor vehicle issued under the laws of a jurisdiction. Driving privileges. Driving privileges means the authority granted to an individual that allows the individual to operate a vehicle of the type and in the manner for which the authority was granted. Again, if you register your automobile with the DMV, it becomes a vehicle, which then makes it commercial. In the event that you did not know that, Reno versus Condon says that. Let's see, it says suspension of driving licenses, employed, highway, a passenger road through the country or some parts of it for the use of people. The term highway is said to be a generic name for all kinds of public ways. Highway, an easement acquired by the public in the use of the road and a way of thoroughfare, a free and public roadway or street on one which every person has the right to use. Common highway, by this term, is meant a road to be used by the community at large for any purpose of transit or traffic. Transit, traffic, commercial. Now, actually, a lot of this we don't even use. So here you go, license. So let's talk about license. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different terminologies that the law uses for the word license. In government regulation, authority to do some act or carry on some trade or business in its nature lawful but prohibited by statute, except with the permission of the civil authority or which would otherwise be lawful. A permit granted by an appropriate governmental body, generally for consideration to a person, firm, or corporation, to pursue some occupation or to carry on some business which is subject to regulation under the police power, Rosenblatt versus California State Board of Pharmacy. A license, fee, or tax is a price paid to government or municipality authority or municipal authority for a license to engage in and pursue a particular calling or occupation. City Investments versus Johnson. Tax on privileges of exercising corporate franchises. License. Contracts. A right given by some competent authority to do an act which without such authority would be illegal. The instrument or writing which secures this right is also called a license. VDL Pareg 353 15 Vin. Don't ask me what that means because I have no idea how to pronounce that. I don't speak that language. Leave to do a thing which licensor could prevent. Western Electric Corp versus Patent Reproducer Corp. 42 Feds. Motor vehicle. Here you go. A taxi, omnibus, or any variety of motor vehicles exclusively used and designed for commerce. Motor vehicle again. The term motor vehicle means every description of carriage. Hang on now. Or contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highway in the transportation of passengers and property or cargo. And you can find that definition in U.S. Code Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 2, Section 31, Definition 6. Still a definition that they use to this day. Imagine that. Motor vehicle, a motor vehicle or automobile for hire. What did it say? Motor vehicle or automobile for hire is a motor vehicle other than an automobile stage, meaning a regular automobile, for the transportation of persons which enumerations is received. International Motor Transit Company versus the City of Seattle. Okay, and then to register a motor vehicle and all that good stuff, we already know. Okay, so here you go. Traffic. Traffic is commerce. Sale or exchange of merchandise, bills, money, and the like. The passing of goods or commodities from one person to another for an equivalent in goods or money, the subjects of transportation on a route. Now that's traffic. That's what traffic means. Or one of the definitions of traffic. Traffic. To pass, the passing of goods and or passing to and fro of persons, animals, vehicles, and or vessels, and in a route of transportation along a street and a highway. Commerce. trade, sale or exchange of merchandise, bills, money, or like, passing of goods and commodities from one person to another for the equivalent in goods or money. So, bottom line, it says here, note, that traffic is legally defined as commerce. Therefore, a traffic ticket is commercial. So, there you go. So, they just validated that. A traffic ticket's commercial. Has nothing to do with, you know, every ordinary night lives, you know. So, transportation, the removal of goods or persons from one place to another, we already know that. Traveler, oh shoot, I didn't even know they hit this. Traveler, they actually answered this, huh? Traveler is a person who passes from place to place, whether for pleasure, instruction, business, or health. Oh, Lockett versus State, 47. Huh, I didn't even know that was in here. Well, there you go. So there you go. See, I just found out something new. But I already knew what a traveler was. But I'm actually surprised to see that the Supreme Court has actually finally validated who is what and what is what. Travel, to journey or to pass through or over as a country, district, road, etc., to go from one place to another, whether on foot or horseback, or any conveyance as a train or automobile, carriage, ship, or aircraft, to make a journey. Imagine that. Oh, and that's actually in Van Cleef versus Chicago 240. The terms travel and traveler are usually construed in their broad and general sense or used in this connection rather than in a narrow and restricted one, and the duty and consequent liability is extended so as to include all those who rightfully use the highways particularly, and who have occasion to pass over them for the purpose of business, convenience, or pleasure. Note, a traveler can be legally defined as a driver when they use the public highway for the purpose of business. If business equates to commerce, their purpose determines the legal definition. The distinction must be drawn between 1. Traveling upon and moving one's private property upon the public roads, which is a common law right, using the public roads as a place of commerce in a for-hire capacity, which is a legally granted privilege. Traveling is a common law right exercised by a private man or woman defined as a traveler in a non-commercial capacity in the ordinary course of their life. Driving is a legally granted privilege performed in a registered motor vehicle by a licensed driver in a for-hire capacity for the purpose of commercial gain. One's purpose for using the highway determines one's jurisdiction. In other words, what they're telling you is if you're a private traveler, you belong to the one jurisdiction, the free jurisdiction. And if you're a driver, right, you belong to the governed jurisdiction, the enslaved jurisdiction. That's what they're just saying. And that right there, they just actually made that pretty clear cut and dry. So, private citizen, not required to have a driver's license. Registration. Only commerce. All the case laws and all the definitions actually support it. There's nothing that goes against it. No one's ever produced anything that goes against it. Judge Rehnquist, as I said, he said it. The DMV's commercial. No state has the authority to regulate private travel. So there you go. One country, two jurisdictions. Simple. You know? So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because this has gotten a little bit long. So this will be part 4 of the one country, two jurisdictions. And I hope you guys are watching these videos and paying close attention to these, because this is law, this is facts. Now, I want to make this disclaimer again. I'm not telling you to go out there and utilize this information, even though it's lawful and factual 100%. Use at your own discretion. Use your own mind. But that's what this is about. Deprogramming those that still believe that you need a driver's license, registration, and all that. If you believe in that, then these videos are for you, because you need to watch these videos, because hopefully one of them touches you in a way that you cannot contradict what I'm saying. You can't contradict what I'm saying anyway, so it don't matter. Whether you believe it or not, I don't care. But the bottom line is you're not going to be able to find any case law that gives a state the authority to regulate private travel. You're not going to find a state statute that says that either. Period. There isn't none. Never has been, never will be. Can't be. So, until that day comes, who knows? Hopefully I'll be long gone and moved on by then, so it don't really matter to me. But anyway, I hope that everyone out there, and this means everyone, I hope that everyone out there had a safe July 4th. I hope that you guys are out there traveling safe, keeping others' best interest at heart. Keep your own best interest at heart first and foremost, but you know, take into consideration the safety and welfare of others. You know, so much love to all my travelers. Much love to all my patriots that are standing, you know, on the Constitution and trying to hold the government accountable and trying to hold these tyrants accountable. Or I won't say trying to hold these tyrants accountable. Let's hold them accountable, because they need to know that just because they get up every morning and put on that costume and they're faking it to make it throughout the day, that doesn't make them better than anyone else, you know. And we also have to keep in mind that the actual laws that are passed and in place is actually for them. So again, you know, like I said, I keep it real here. We tell the truth here. We don't share nothing but facts. We don't tell bullshit. I've had too many trolls come on here, too many haters and traitors come on here, and guess what? They ain't on here no more. I haven't seen none on here for a while. You know, I've actually been noticing a big change in my the ones that have subscribed. They're actually, you know, following faithfully, because they're either one, they're learning, okay, or and they could be undercover police, which is even better. You know, that's even better for me, because if you are a police and you're one of my subscribers, I hope you're learning something, because like I said, and I'm saying this to everybody in general, what you've been told is not the truth. And this is part 4 of One Country, Two Jurisdictions. And as I told you, all the information that I give to you is not off the internet. Okay, it's straight from the law books. I have, you know, friends in places that can get me things, you know, law transcripts, the whole 9 yards. You know, I have people in Washington, friends. I got friends everywhere. 25 years in the military, you know, yeah, you've acquired a lot of friends, you know what I'm saying? And I've got friends in places that would blow some of y'all's people's minds. Now, I'm not, you know, bragging. I'm just saying that the information I gain, that I read to you guys, is not information that's found on the internet. Granted, a lot of the stuff, and I admit, a lot of the stuff that I have read has similarities to what I've seen on the internet. But when I'm reading the real version versus The altered version, there's even similarities in there somewhere that somehow derive to the same conclusion, where someone's just added their own personal emphasis into it, but it derived to the same conclusion. Unfortunately for Thoughts of a Patrolman, he put his own emphasis in there that changed the total outcome of the overall case in Thompson versus Smith. He either failed to understand or failed to realize that in that case it specifically states in there that a state had no application, okay, to regulate common right travel. He failed to mention that part of the case, you know, but he wanted to criticize our fight, you know, by saying that, oh, you only pull out parts of the case that pertain to you. In a lot of instances, yes, we do, because of the simple fact that's all that matters is the parts of the case that actually pertain to what we're arguing. Yeah, that's how you use cases, dummy. That's how cases has been used through the centuries. That's how they're used. You extract the part of the case out that pertains to the situation that you're facing at that time. Yeah, that's how you use them. That's how cases are used. Dude, get off your fucking high horse, come back down to earth, get grounded, go sit your ass down in a law library and read books. Read the law books, and you will see that every single case you're about to sit down and read is doing exactly what you criticize us for doing. Every single case in there does that. Every case refers to another case. They pull out the extraction of a part of a case that they feel fits that particular situation at that time, and they apply that. That's how cases are used. In the event that you didn't know that, now you know that, okay? And I'm not going to tell you what I am in relation to the law, because what I am in relation to the law, you don't ever want to know. And I've already told you that the other day in my other video. You do not ever want to meet me on the bad grounds of tense that you pulled me over, because like I told you in that video, I'm going to tell you in this video too, you would never write a traveler a ticket again. Because the beautiful life that you know, you wouldn't have. I'd own your pension. I'd own everything you own. And I can take it away like that. That easy. You'd be amazed at what I can do in the court. And I don't need fancy lawyers, and I don't have to spend money. I don't have to do all that. I can go in there and do it myself. That's how tough I am in that court. I'm badass like that. I'm good like that. Judge talking about, well, you need a license to practice law. No, I don't. Under common law, I'm not required to have a license. It's knowledge of the law is all I'm required to have. And I have knowledge, and I can write, and I do know how to read. Because, see, I'm not a straw man. I'm not a fictitious man. I'm not a belligerent man. Ignorant man. See, a lot of y'all don't know that even in that, when you get a lawyer or you get a public defender, the courts deem you a ward of the state once you file that paperwork saying that you can't afford a lawyer. So now they deem you a ward of the state, and basically what that means is you are incompetent. Now, if you don't know what the word incompetent means, I suggest you go look that up, because it's not to your favor. You are incompetent, and they don't feel that you are competent to answer questions. Hence the reason why public defenders always say, don't take the stand in your own defense. Because they agree with the court that you are not competent enough to understand the proceedings that you are going through. It's all part of their plan. That's all part of their guise. It's what they do. The corporation, they've built this. So that is the reason why you don't ever want a public pretender. A public pretender is an officer of the court, and all he's going to do is do what's in the best interest of the court. Okay? Not what's in your best interest. Now, granted, you do have some that do have their client's best interest at heart. They're rare, few and far in between, but there are some out there that actually do care, you know. I met one. Now, granted, he was great in court, and this was years ago before I was even in the military and what have you. But he was great in court. He handled this case, but he couldn't do shit for me outside of the courtroom. But when you got him in that courtroom, he was badass. And him and his wife, they both were lawyers, and they both handled their business like true champs, you know. But anyway, get out of their jurisdiction, people. That's the bottom line. Get out of their jurisdiction. You know, if you know, need to have that job, that occupation that requires you to have a license and what have you, then hey, this ain't for you. You know, this is not for you. You can't actually do this and be. You just can't. Straddling the fence on this is either all or nothing, basically. Get out of their jurisdiction. There's plenty of occupations out there that don't require you to have a license. Bottom line is, you don't need a license. You don't need the government's permission to do a damn thing. Man made it. Man created it. So the government, the only thing that they can do is control their creation. Okay? Keep that in mind. And as I told you at the beginning of well, maybe not at the beginning of this one, I think it was another one I was getting ready to start and the video cut out on me. But the government does not think of you as citizens. Oh, well, they do think of you as citizens. But you have been misled to believe that a citizen is a free individual. No, they're not. They're enslaved. You're enslaved. The government does not look at you as free citizens. They look at you as property and business. You are profit. Okay? Supreme Court even says so. So keep this in mind when I'm telling you this, because I need for all y'all to know and understand that the Supreme Court is the law of the land. Okay? They're going to tell you what it is. They're going to tell you how it is. So the bottom line of what I'm getting at is this. Okay? The government, even though they provide a lot of benefits and a lot of things for a lot of people who succumb to their contract and what have you, if that's the life you choose to live and that's the life you're comfortable with and that's the life that you got, you know, then hey, you know, like I said. But like I've also been saying a couple of times, Hitler said that you tell a lie so big that the masses only perceive it to be the truth. So now it's time to disclose the lie. So watch parts 1, 2, and 3. This is part 4. 1 country, 2 jurisdictions. There'll be a part 5 and a part 6 coming up pretty soon. Check out my other videos. They're all everything's in relation to this. This is not a movement, people. This is reality. This is what's going on in real world time. So this is what we're faced with. You know, tyrants, encroachments on our rights, and before you realize it, your rights are going to be taken away, stripped away from you one by one, and you're not even going to be able to do anything from that point forward. Because from that point forward, once they get a hold of your rights, what they're going to do is they're going to demand that you ask them for permission to do anything. So, with that being said, you know, I'm going to go ahead and get off here. This is Dark Angel. And, you know, like I said, hope y'all had a safe 4th of July weekend. Safe travels to all my brothers and sisters out there traveling. And to all my new subscribers, thank you. I appreciate your support and subscribing to this channel. And if you know of any other people who are interested in this movement, send them to the channel. You know, they don't have to subscribe. like I said, you might have noticed in all my videos, nowhere in there am I asking anybody for anything. Am I telling anybody to do anything? Because I'm not in this for the fame. I'm not in this for the glory. I'm not in this for money, monetary gain, or anything like that. Now, granted, I am thinking about starting a movement, a union of sorts that will get and try to form as many travelers as we can and go around, you know, to as many places as we can and start talking and leaving information and you know, holding seminars and things of this magnitude. That's in the future. Plans, goals. Like I said, I've been doing this for 30-something years, so, you know, it's not new to me, you know. You know, it would be great if I can get a hold of Brian on Here's the Deal and get a hold of a few other, Brooklyn Audit, you know, and all these people, because this is about the movement altogether. This isn't just about the right to travel. It's about the right to bear arms. It's about the right to freedom of the press. This is what it's all about. It's about the Constitution, the rights of the citizens, the rights of Americans. Let me rephrase that. And I need to be for even utilizing the word citizen. So this is for all the rights of Americans. Okay, you citizens, you know, it's kind of funny because, you know, you have all these guys on here. Let's Talk Law with Mike, Van Buren, and all these guys. You know, they're sitting there, they're criticizing sovereign. And they keep calling them sovereign citizens. Calling everyone who's doing what they're doing sovereign citizens. Now, if you're a seasoned lawyer, you would think that you would know that calling someone a sovereign citizen is an oxymoron. Sovereign's free. Citizens enslaved. So it's an oxymoron. So you're a free enslaved man. No. Doesn't even sound right to any degree of the word. It sounds ignorant as hell. And that's why when Talk Law with Mike and Van Buren and all them people get on there and they start talking their dumb shit, you know, everybody's laughing at them actually. You know, and even though these guys have a lot of followers, but this just goes to show you that dumb will follow dumb until intelligent comes along. Because when intelligent comes along, then all of a sudden they don't know no better. You know, but that's how it is. You know, fake recognizes fake until real comes along, then fake gets somewhere. You see what I'm saying? Fake can sit there and bull his chest out and be a bully and let his ego get in the way. But then when a real person comes along, fake gonna get somewhere because he don't want to be discovered. He don't want to be disposed of. So there's that. But anyway, this is Dark Angel, y'all. I'm outie. Like I said, be safe. And, you know, I'm just rambling here, but, you know, be safe, everybody. Deuces.